Hazwoper Hazardous Waste Operations and Emergency Response by Tamisha Neal,
Whitney Schwab,
and Chastity Smith.
The purpose of Hazwoper is to protect individuals who work at a hazardous waste facility, encounter hazardous waste during cleanup, or respond to an emergency involving hazardous waste. It creates a standard for operations to keep workers and the environment safe and free of contamination by hazardous substances. It details the procedures that employers and employees must follow depending on the waste and work being performed. Occupation Health and Safety Administration, OSHA, is the organization responsible for designing, implementing, and granting the certification. Job-specific regulations are cited in Title 29 CFR. Procedures and entities covered by Hazwoper or situations in which Hazwoper training is required include cleanup operations required by a government body involving hazardous waste at an uncontrolled hazardous waste site, corrective actions involving cleanup operations at sites covered by the RCRA, voluntary cleanup operations at a site that is recognized by a government body as uncontrolled hazardous waste site, operations involving hazardous waste that are conducted at treatment, storage, and disposal facilities regulated by Title 40 Code of Federal Regulations, Part 264 and 265, pursuant to RCRA or by agencies under agreement with US EPA to implement RCRA regulations, and emergency response operations for releases of or substantial threats of releases of hazardous substances, regardless of the location of the hazard.
Prerequisites for a Hazwoper. There are two primary considerations for you to explore before deciding whether to take an online Hazwoper course. For Hazwoper training, it is essential that the trainees have hands-on experience and exercises to provide an opportunity to become familiar with the equipment and safe practices in a non-hazardous setting. The purpose of the hands-on training is twofold. First, to ensure that workers have opportunity to learn by practical experience, and second, to assess whether workers have mastered the necessary skills. You need to know how this hands-on training will be provided. Also, an effective training program is critical that trainees have the opportunity to ask questions where material is unfamiliar to them. In a computer-based training program, this requirement may be accomplished through the provision of access to a telephone hotline or an email contact at the time the training is being conducted, so the trainees will have direct access to qualified trainers at the time their questions are raised. There is no formal prerequisite for Hazwoper. You must be Hazwoper certified to legally work with any hazardous substance as defined by OSHA and RCRA. Products with these labels are typically classified as hazardous waste when disposed.
What industries require Hazwoper training? The Hazwoper standard applies to 5 groups of employers and their employees, and specifically include any employees who are exposed to hazardous substances and who are engaged in several operations including cleanup, treatment, storage, and disposal of hazardous waste. In addition, workers involved in an emergency response operation dealing with hazardous waste, and workers who have to perform duties at a waste site where hazardous contamination are equally expected to be fully trained and protected. For further clarification, an interpretation letter provided by OSHA gives some guidance as to what constitutes a hazardous substance or situation. High concentrations of toxic substances. Situations that is life or injury threatening. Imminent danger to life and health. Environments. Situations that presents an oxygen deficient atmosphere. Conditions that poses a fire or explosion hazard. Situation that required an evacuation of the area. A situation that requires immediate attention because of the danger posed to employees. For example, chemical industries, EHS personnel, firefighters, field technicians, project managers, environmental managers, HAZWOP certified workers, geologists, mechanics, dump site responders, or workers. How do I get certified? You get certified by passing the Hazwoper training exam. This exam is given by an OSHA campus certified training provider. After you successfully complete an OSHA campus compliant training course, which comes in several forms depending on the nature of the job and the type of hazardous environment your job is in. Generally, it is a 24 or 40-hour course depending on your job type and experience. Hazwoper training. OSHA recognizes several levels of training based on the work the employees will be performing and the level of hazard they will be facing. Each level requires a different training program, and OSHA specifies topics and minimum training times. General site workers initially require 40 hours of instruction, 3 days of supervised hands-on training. Workers limited to a specific task are workers on fully characterized sites with no hazards above acceptable levels require 24 hours of initial training and 1 day of supervised hands-on training. Managers and supervisors require the same level of training as the people they supervise. Workers who are working a treatment, storage, or disposal facility that handles RCRA waste require 24 hours of initial training. First responder operation level awareness level training plus 8 hours of training. Hazardous materials technician and specialist require 24 hours of training plus additional training to achieve competency in several areas. On-scene incident commander 24 hours of training plus additional training to achieve competency in several areas. In all, there are 18 different points to training. The basic premise is that it is for preventing exposure or mitigating dangerous situations, fire explosion, or chemical exposure.
Thank you for listening to our Hazwoper vodcast. If you have any questions, please feel free to visit the OSHA website or contact one of us. Thank you.